It's good to see you all again. We woke up to an overcast autumn morning here for our live safari out of Kunyuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. And I'm glad to let you know that there seems to be some action on the roads this morning and some action that we heard of around the Kunyuma camp. So thank you very much to Jody and to John Q who sent through their updates. We had some hyena crossing over the dam towards the camp last night, and we also had a leopard that was seen around about 12 o'clock. Now, when we woke up this morning, I woke up in the dark, and I was hearing the hyena calling quite close to camp. Came out and saw the tracks on the road. There is talk of a leopard around the camp. We're going to be making our way into the area to go and follow up. I didn't hear the lions last night, which was funny. I was expecting them to wake me up with their roars periodically through the evening, but that doesn't mean that they're not around. And I think it would be worthwhile for us to go and have a look for them a bit later on as well. So what we're going to carry on doing is we're going to just circle around the area close to the dam, and we're going to see if we can pick up the cat that was seen last night. All right, let's carry on. For those of you who are new to our live safari experience, you're welcome to send questions through to me at #SafariLive on Twitter or via email at questions@wildearth.tv. And Nikki in Final Control will relay them through to me, and I'll try my best to answer those that I can. It was very rude of me. I forgot to introduce VM to everybody this morning. It's VM and I on Safari. VM's operating the camera this morning, and he's a welcome second set of eyes. Early mornings are always a firm favorite of mine, because the bush almost seems fresh. It's definitely gives you the impression of a new beginning. And what we like to term bush newspaper, or the bush newspaper, always seems like it's a new delivery. The roads have the last night's tracks written all over them. The bush seems to be a little bit alive. Birds are not really feeding this time of the morning. They're always giving their territorial displays and calls, and the transition from nocturnal animals to diurnal animals is happening as we speak. So animals that are usually active at night time are now moving back towards their places of safety, and animals that are normally active in the daytime are starting to wake up and stretch and move around. It's always nice coming out just before sunrise. There's definitely a sense of peace during these transition periods, quite similar to sunset, but for me dawn is a lot better. This overcast weather that we're having is going to make for a nice day, I think. Keep animals out and active for a bit longer. Can you imagine being covered in all that fur? If it was a hot day, they don't move around for as long as what they would when it's overcast and a bit cooler like it is today. So leopard, being rather shy and elusive, tend to like the thicker bush areas. It's not to say that you won't find them in the open. You do find leopard crossing open areas both in the day and in the night. and walking on open roads, but they tend to like the thicker bush. And we have a drainage line on my left hand side, on this hand side, and living in these drainage lines are small antelope, bushbuck, nyala, enjoy it, duiker, and on the fringes you'd find steenbuck. We also have monkeys, all favorite foods of leopard. So what I'm doing is I'm following this drainage line to find out if the leopard that was seen around the dam last night comes out onto this road, or we can hear something that'll let us know that he's inside the drainage line. I'm reading the tracks on the road, identifying what was walking on the road or walking in the sand, trying to establish a timeline. So nothing comes out on this road. VM has just spotted some tracks on his side of the vehicle.
I can only see the toes. I don't know what the pads are.
And he spotted a fresh hyena track. Hyena are one of those animals that you really battle to track. They walk incredible distances at night time, and almost every road will have a hyena track of some sort on it. They patrol their home ranges, or they patrol their territories. Endurance athletes, they look for food, quite often scavenging off of lion and leopard. But it's not to say that they won't hunt themselves. So if he wasn't moving in this direction, which we're going to establish now, what we'll do is we'll circle the area where he was last seen. So we'll circle we call it a block. It's a block of bush that has roads around it. And we'll see, if we can, where he came out. Our seasons are changing from summer to winter at the moment. We're in our autumn period, and the Lowveld, which is where we are at the moment, it's an area in South Africa that's between two mountain ranges, the Lebombo mountain range in the east and the Drakensberg mountain range in the west. Subsided, or is lower than the two mountain ranges, so they call it the Lowveld or the low bush. And it's quite a nice place to spend winter. The temperatures very rarely get to below freezing. We'll hover around there in the evenings and then shoot right back up to 30 degrees centigrade, 20 to 30 degrees centigrade during the day. We're roughly about 80 to 100 kilometers from the Indian Ocean, and it does have an effect on the temperature here. But not a moderating effect, not as much as if you had to live actually on the coast, where the temperature of the water keeps the variables at bay. Lots of birds calling this morning. It's fantastic. Now birds will use the early mornings to call because the air is relatively still. We have a slight breeze this morning, but not too much. Relatively still, and it's also not the optimum feeding time for a lot of birds. A lot of birds out here are insectivorous, and insects need the sun to warm them up before they start moving and make it easy for birds to see them. So they use the time to socialize, they use the time to call, establish and re-establish their territory. So we have no tracks coming out north of the block. So now what we're going to be doing is checking the western edge. So James in Kansas City has just asked, do I know what the temperature today is and the wind direction? Which is it's actually a good question, because a lot of animals only get moving at certain or between certain temperature ranges, and wind direction plays an important part in how predators move. So the temperature at the moment is about 12 to 15 degrees centigrade. I'm not too sure what that is in Fahrenheit, so I'll need some help there from our friends in countries that use Fahrenheit. And the wind direction is from east to west this morning. So at the moment I'm driving east and I have the wind gusting into my face. It's not too strong at the moment. It's not really even moving the trees, just the top of the trees. I know there's a scale for determining the strength of wind, ending at sort of hurricane force. We probably, and on the scale is 1 to 10, with 10 being hurricane force. We're probably at force 1 at the moment. So gentle breeze, just moving the trees, the tops of the trees. For those of you seeing my face for the first time, I'm Stefan, and I've just joined the WildEarth team, taking out some safaris. This is my second safari. Although in a long career of taking safaris, this is my 16th year of doing game drives and hosting guests in the bush. For most of that time I've been working in this part of Africa, in South Africa, and on the eastern side of South Africa in the Kruger National Park and the surrounding private game reserves, such as where we are right now. You're welcome to send some questions through to me if you like. Questions at wildearth.tv, or you can send them through to Twitter at #SafariLive. Nikki in Final Control will try and patch those that she can through to me. line from at 93 to 14. Copy that. You'll notice the bush around me where we are at the moment is green. We're driving through a thicket, a Tambuti thicket. Tambutis are some of the rare trees that you find in this part of the world. They were quite highly prized for their wood, which is quite a fragrant. The rare trees that you find in this part of the world. They were quite highly prized for their wood, which is quite a fragrant. It has quite a fragrant odor to it. It's also known as the African cedar, and was used to make jewelry boxes at the turn of the century. And nowadays it's really tough to find big examples of tambutis, although here I've managed to find a few. So the ones at Kunyuma have largely escaped the predations of man. And what is nice to see is that there's very healthy thickets of young trees. So I'm hoping that the seeds of one or two more giants are in the making here over the next couple of centuries. Trees themselves, when they get old, are hundreds of years old. Wood is really hard. They take a long time to grow, only a couple of centimeters a year. We've moved out of that thicket now. Still working the edge of the drainage line that runs into the dam, William Teller Dam, where the camera is. We've now come up the one side and we're going down the other, keeping our eyes and ears open for any signs of that leopard that was seen a couple of hours ago. Leopard are predominantly nocturnal, although in my experience it comes down to a personality thing. Some leopard enjoy walking through the day, others enjoy walking through the night. But predominantly they'll do most of their activities under the cover of darkness, and by that I mean the marking of territory, most of their hunting. It doesn't look like it's going to rain today. The clouds are very high, and I can actually see some clear patches beginning to open. Go with the message. Good news for us. Some of our teammates, we work in a web of rangers that come out of the game reserves in the area. We all help one another try and find animals for each other, basically. And while I mentioned to my colleagues that I was going to check the drainage line that we've been driving up and down, some other of them work downstream and they've managed to pick up what we're looking for. So we're going to be making our way through to a surprise for all of you. We're probably going to be there in a couple of minutes. We weren't too far off. So go warm up your coffees. make our way through. Bird that's busy shouting at us on the way past. Right. So somewhere here we've got to keep our eyes nice and open. Here's what we've been looking for this morning. Stations with this mother of Ingwe of this house in the position. For those of you looking at the screen at the top left, keep an eye out for something. So there we have.
You guys keep me updated if he gets mobile.
So there we have what looks like a young male leopard on the top of a marula tree. He's got some branches in front of his face. I will move the vehicle in a little bit. Although leopard are supremely comfortable in trees, there is only a one-way up and one-way down, and I'm always a little bit cautious about approaching leopard in trees. I always like to let them tell me about what they're comfortable with. They definitely have moods the same as what we do, and I don't want to make him uncomfortable and make him jump down. Have a look at that fat belly. There's a reason why he's in the tree. It's lying just at the bottom of the base of his tail. That is the leftovers of dinner, it looks like. I'm going to go forward just a little bit. And let's see what he tells us. Still 100% comfortable with us. So as I'm still new to identifying the leopard on this particular reserve. It definitely is a young male leopard. For those of you who are new to the show this morning, leopard have markings, those spots on their face are very similar to fingerprints on a human, and every leopard is born with a different set and design of spots on their face, and by careful study we can actually identify which leopard is which. Because they're territorial, you do see leopard because they're territorial, and you see them often in an area. At least you see mature males and mature females and their offspring in an area often. You get to know who's who. And because they each have their own sort of distinct personality, you get to learn their habits. Would you repeat your message? So we've just had an update from Trisha, who says that this is definitely Kunyuma, which is Quarantine's brother. Kunyuma, he's a young male leopard, 2.5 years old. Him and his brother were born at the same time. Leopard have anywhere from they can have anywhere from 1 to 6 babies, but it's usually only one that's brought up to full adulthood, and in rare cases 2. I've never really seen a leopard bring up more than 2 cubs. It's really difficult for a single mom to find enough food to keep 2 cubs going and to stop them from being preyed upon by a hyena and lion in this reserve. But their mom managed to bring both 2 boys up into the world. They're on the cusp of full adulthood, and a supremely good effort from her. You'll notice those long whiskers on his face. They actually extend. If he extends those whiskers or erects those whiskers, they're as wide as his body, just a little bit wider than his body, and it aids them in hunting through thick bush. Those whiskers each go into a nerve. And hunting in the dark, hunting in thick bush, those whiskers aid him in slipping through gaps in the bush and enable leopard to really move about incredibly quietly. Big feet. And you notice on his pad there, he's got no visible claws. They have retractable claws, really sharp, really curved claws. There are 5 claws on the front foot, and that's what you're looking at the moment. You're looking at a front foot, and there are 4 claws on the back foot. Although only 4 toes really register in the sand, the 5th toe is it's off the ground on the wrist and is called a dew claw. Let's try and move around to the other side of the tree. We'll give him another minute or 2. Let's see what he's going to do. I don't want to move too often. We'll give it a minute. It looks like his pillow is on that side of the tree, or on that side of the branch, I should say. We'll move across in a second. Go right ahead. Bob on our Twitter has just asked me what Kunyuma has killed. That's a good question, Bob. What we're looking at the base of his tail there is part of the digestive tract of a small animal. Now, leopard are known to take kills as much as 100 kilograms of weight into trees. I've found baby buffalo in trees, and I've heard of reports of even giraffe calves that have been pulled into trees by leopard. I've never seen something that big in a tree before. From this angle, it's impossible to tell what he killed. But I think what I'm going to do is move around to the other side of the tree, because it looks like a more comfortable position for him. And I think that once he relaxes with our presence, like he is at the moment, so once again, what I'm going to do is just let him dictate to me what he's comfortable with. We're in his world at the moment, and therefore it's his choice to let us know what he's comfortable with today. So I'm going to be watching him as I change direction here, looking for anything that tells me that he's not happy. And at the moment his head is flat on a branch. He couldn't be more relaxed. There we go. Leopard have a way of draping themselves over a branch that makes the softest bed we have look like sleeping on a bed of rocks. I was able to identify what he had for dinner, and it looks like a steenbok. A steenbok is a small antelope, one of the dwarf antelope that we found out here. And there you can see, I was able to identify it from the white belly and white forelegs and that light tawny colored skin that you can see in the picture. He started to eat at the hindquarters, which is not uncommon for a leopard. They very often start at the back or in the belly cavity of an antelope, and that's because the most nutritious food is inside the antelope, the liver and the hindquarters, and it's also where leopard get a lot of their moisture from. They will drink when water is available, as last night's camera shot at the dam proved, but they don't necessarily need water. They get a lot of their water from the food that they eat, and are able to survive because of that into deserts. Leopard are one of the most widespread of all the cat species. You find them, or used to find them, before overpopulation and habitat destruction caused their populations to be fragmented. But there are historical records of leopard from the tip of Cape Town all the way to the eastern shores of Asia. Deserts all the way through to rainforests, you find leopard from 100 meters above sea level all the way to 1,200 meters above sea level. Have a look at that. Beautiful. Now, because the competition for food out in an area like this is relatively high. I mean, you've got lion, you've got hyena, you've got leopard of varying sizes. They're all vying for the same food, basically. He needs to be able to safeguard that food. Leopard have evolved this unique amongst the cats ability to larder food in trees. So he avoids lion or the majority of lion and hyena stealing his kills by treeing. It's called treeing his kill. Now, almost all leopard are able to tree their kills. However, in my experience, I've seen some leopard who never tree kills and others who tree kills all the time. Kunyuma has got he definitely enjoys treeing his kills, while his brother Quarantine doesn't, as far as I know. And that's all due to experience. A tree like this, here we go. What's he busy doing? Having a good stretch. Have a look at that balance, folks. Leopard can lock their wrists, which enable them to climb trees, and the pads on their feet are also quite rough, which gives them the ability to almost stick to the bark of a tree. Have a look at what he's doing there. Obviously wants some more food, or he just wants to reposition the kill a little bit. He's just making sure that it's not going to fall out of the tree. Have a look at that balance. A leopard are much more agile in trees than what lion are. Lion are big and cumbersome, and a leopard like him will probably, if lion had to corner him in this tree, he'd probably be able to escape them by moving into the thinnest branches of the tree. I've seen leopard on the outskirts, on the fringes of a tree. With lions around, they soon lose interest and move on. Long tongue, very similar to a house cat's. A leopard's tongue is covered in spiny projections, incredibly rough, and they're able to pluck and lick the hair off their prey. They tend to take a lot of time to pluck hair off their prey. They lick the hair off and they spit the hair out. Them and caracal have a similar behavioral trait, and they don't enjoy eating things with hair. I like to put it down to their superior intelligence. I also wouldn't like mouthfuls of hair. Beautiful view of those massive canines. Used to grip prey and to administer the strangling bite that cats are so famous for, the bite around the base of the skull or around the throat, which very quickly dispatches prey. Those eyes. I've always wondered at the intelligence behind those eyes. Seems to be looking straight through us. A leopard, in terms of brain weight to body volume, have the largest brains of all the cats. A leopard's brain is in fact bigger than a lion's brain and more well developed on the frontal lobe, which is where intelligence lies. So So you will notice him pulling at that carcass. He was busy plucking some fur. Welcome. Looks like he's coming down. So Blair in Canada have asked me how high he has his kill, and we'll be able to see now, give it some perspective. He probably has it, Blair, telling us he's not too comfortable. It's okay, my boy. We're not here to hurt you, we're just here to look at you. So that's a typical reaction some leopard have to a camera lens or binoculars, or in fact anybody just making eye contact with them. It's just leopard are very elusive, and they don't enjoy being exposed, and he's now on a tree trunk, exposed. Now you can have a look at how high his kill was. We'll zoom out a little bit more, and you can see that it's in the top branches of this tree, easily 3.5, probably 4 meters off of the ground, 4.5 meters, which is roughly 20 to 25 feet off of the ground. Marulas make for fantastic larders for leopard. This is a marula tree. Their bark is relatively soft, and their branches are parallel to the ground, which make for nice beds. Now he's climbed out of the trees. He's just in the base of the tree. Quite often when leopard are full, they won't sleep for long periods in a tree. They will feed and then come down. They are exposed in the tree. Their kills are safe in the tree, but if he were to be cornered by some lion in the top of a tree, it would be potentially disastrous. But being on the ground, he gives himself an escape route. And most lion, upon realizing that he was not in the tree but his kill is, they would opt for trying to get his kill and breakfast rather than chasing him through the bush. So it is safer for them on the ground. You'll notice that beautiful coloration, disruptive camouflage. With the help of a telephoto lens, we were able to see him in the grass, but you can imagine in a pitch darkness with a slight breeze blowing, that steenbuck didn't stand a chance. His ear, you'll notice, is banded black and white. You'll also see that his eyes are ringed in white. The nose is outlined in black, and a black lip, which you can see there. Brilliant white teeth and pink gums. They're all actually designed to accentuate movements at this part of the face. And it's how they communicate with one another. They obviously don't have a verbal language, and the way they communicate with each other is through gestures and tiny movements and placements, specific placements of their ears, their lips, their nose. You saw him talking to us as he came down the tree, just letting us know that he didn't appreciate us filming him descending the tree. Coming back to the camouflage again, very similar to military camouflage, which is designed to break up the profile. You can see that his coat, the dots and the rosettes that he has on his coat, is there to break up his profile, which is actually how you identify animals. So his coat is designed specifically to break up his profile, and have a look at that shot. You can hardly distinguish his head from his belly, from his neck. That was just a beautiful shot of how his camouflage helps that to happen. Almost as good, just an amorphous mass there. You can hardly tell what is neck and chin. Welcome, go right ahead. Anne on Twitter has just asked me if, and welcome Anne, welcome to the show. Anne has just asked me if Kunyuma or Quarantine, his brother, will be any threat to his mom's new cub when she finally has a baby again. At 2.5 years, there's every expectation, at him being 2.5 years old, there's every expectation that his mother is either pregnant at the moment or wanting to become pregnant. Her body will be telling her it's around about time again. And it's quite a difficult question, that, because it's all dependent on the density of leopard in any particular area. These two boys have they haven't set up a territory. They're not actively marking territories. They're still within their mother or their natal territory, their mother's territory where they were born. And they starting to reach sexual maturity. They themselves will not be a threat to their mother's new cub. It's not uncommon for generations or successive generations of leopard to be within a similar area and live together. It depends on how successful their mothers are at breeding. But he won't necessarily show any aggression to the new cub. They don't live mutually exclusive from one another. I would go so far as to presume that leopard know exactly where each other are pretty much all of the time. And with their highly developed sense of smell and their mother being the dominant female around this area, she will be marking her territory, and they will be able to pick up on any signs that she's leaving behind. They'll definitely know when she has a new cub. So no, they don't pose any threat to her new babies. Unfortunately, the mortality rate amongst leopard and lion is quite high. Leopard, lion and hyena, in actual fact. In some areas of Africa, up to 80% of all the cubs that are born die. In this particular area, it's not that high, although a lot of cubs don't make it through to adulthood for a variety of reasons. In this area, lion and hyena and leopard, they unfortunately kill one another's cubs quite regularly. In other areas, factors like starvation and temperature exposure, extremes in temperature will kill babies. Disease quite often takes young cubs. That's all Mother Nature's way of maintaining an equilibrium, a balance. So I have a relatively fast digestive system. At the moment, his belly full of meat, which he can bolt meat down. Roughly 20% of his 20% of his body weight he can actually swallow in a sitting. So he's definitely got a kilogram or two of meat in his belly. Looking at what's left of that steenbok, I'd say he's probably got upwards of 5 kilograms, 5 to 10 kilograms of meat in his belly. He will digest that meat in a couple of hours, and it'll give him energy probably for 3 to 5 days before he really starts needing to hunt again. In my time out here in Kunyuma, I've seen him take 3 kills. Although the average for the entire Kruger National Park is 1 kill larger than 10 kilograms for every 12 days, which doesn't sound like a lot. For the viewers who've just joined our show, welcome and good morning from Kunyuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. We're watching a young male leopard who's lying at the base of a tree. He has a kill in. He's killed a steenbuck. It looks like he killed it fairly early last night because he's relatively full. He's lying up at the base of the tree having a rest. There's his kill. It'll probably last him the rest of the morning. I have no doubt that he'll move away from this area by this evening. It's a nice cool day. He's not going to have too much problems dealing with the heat of the day. And he's going to go through bouts of eating, resting, eating, resting, eating. He may go down and have a drink of water. It is available. Vuyatela Dam is within sight of where we are right now. And come back and finish his meal off. You're welcome. Mel in California has just asked or remarked on the fact that when Kunyuma came down the tree, he used his tail. And is this common? And the answer to that question, Mel, is absolutely. Leopard tails are about 2/3 the length of their body. They're round, they're quite weighty, and is used as a counterbalance. When he's running through the bush, they swing their tails around quite wildly, and it helps them maneuver in sharp jinks and turns to follow their prey. And B, when they're balancing in trees, it's almost like an acrobatic pole. It helps them to counteract their movements in the trees. So it is a common thing for leopard to use. It's very similar to how most animals use their tail. Leopard, it's just accentuated. Taken one further is their cousins, the cheetah, who have a round tail that is weighted at one end, and they also use their tail to great effect while they're maneuvering at speed. Now, a weighted tail wouldn't help a leopard because it would just be cumbersome in their particular habitat. But a round, cylindrical, heavy tail, it's quite heavy at the base, quite wide. We're looking at probably this wide at the base and that round, which is significant, tapering to about that wide at the end. It is covered in fur. Most of it is actually just bone. His spine is extended into his tail and covered by flesh, and then hair, skin and fur after that. And is a great indication of their mood as well. Not only does it help them balance and maneuver at speed when they're running around and climbing in trees, but it's also, when you bump into them, a good way of judging their mood. They flick and dart their tails around. He's having a snooze. There's a fairly good chance that we're going to be able to find him here again in a bit. I think what we're going to do is let's carry on with this morning's game drive. Let's see if we can go and pick up anything else. And we'll come back if we are lucky enough to still find him over here, if we don't find anything else. So VM and I are going to be reversing out of the sighting, giving some other guides a chance to view him, giving him a chance to rest without us making a big noise around him, and we'll probably come back to him a bit later. For now, let's carry on with the game drive. Goodbye, boy. Once again, as I'm reversing out of the sighting, I'm just watching him, letting him tell us how relaxed he is. I reversed out of this particular area I was in with him without him even so much as looking at us. So he's a very relaxed cat at the moment, which is good. And it's one of the ways that out here we maintain our relationships, our good relationships with these animals. We don't like to bother them, if at all possible. Some animals can develop bad habits, chasing vehicles, chasing people. They're by no means domesticated. This is a completely wild area and has been a completely wild area forever. But because we all live together, we all respect one another. Stations, I'm leaving the sighting of the one my daughter Ingwe. So at the base of the Marula tree, static, no one in the sighting, it's open lock. So look what we found within sight of the kill. You can see the kill in the tree actually in the top right hand corner. Lying here in the sand is a hyena. So this hyena is being quite sneaky in that he's lying within earshot of this leopard, but not within sight. Now, what this hyena is doing is just lying here, listening to hear if Kunyuma makes the mistake of dropping his kill out of the tree, and he will then run up and snatch it. So this is a spotted hyena. They very, very often tail leopard and snatch their kills. They're just big bullies, or they can be big bullies at least anyway. They weigh more than what leopard do generally, and it's quite easy for them to snatch kills. Might be the reason that Kunyuma enjoys treeing his kills as much as what he does. It very quickly takes the kill out of reach of hyena. They can't climb trees, they don't have retractable claws. And you'll notice that this hyena is lying in a depression, a sand depression. It's nice and cool. Gives him a bit of a raised area to act as a pillow. Welcome. So this hyena will be part of a clan, and that clan will live in this particular area. They have there's home ranges and there are territories. Now the difference between a home range and a territory is a home range is the area that an animal will walk in or live in and be seen in, and a territory is the area an animal will defend. Now hyena live in huge territories and home ranges. Because there's so many of them, usually in a clan, they can defend a much larger area. Now this hyena can afford to lie up and tail this leopard because it's just an easy meal if Kunyuma does make a mistake, and he's not using any energy at the moment to run around catching his own food. So for them, or for him at least, works out quite well. Let's repeat your message. I'm just going to reverse a little bit so that we can have a look at her face, see if we can get a better shot. There we go, through the grass there. I'm sorry, that's about the best that we can do for now. She's lying up in a thicket of monkey oranges, which is quite dense. Now coming back to hyena and their territories, it's not uncommon for hyena, as we were mentioning earlier this morning, on this particular reserve, it's not uncommon to find hyena track on almost every road and fresh sign of them on almost every road on the reserve in the mornings. They can walk anywhere up to 30 kilometers in an evening and have been known to make foraging journeys of up to 400 kilometers away from den sites on their foraging, on their forays. Territory size and home ranges vary with food depending on where hyena are found. In the drier parts of the country where game is scarce, territories are massive. And by massive, I'm saying around 2,000 square kilometers. Whereas here in the Kruger National Park, where the density of prey is around about 10 animals per hectare, you have territory and home ranges roughly 500 square kilometers. So 500 square kilometers is very close on about 300 square miles, all for it. This particular clan of hyena, it's a massive area. Yeah. I think we're going to leave her or him to lie up in the sand. We're going to make a loop through the reserve and see what else we can find, and possibly come back and have a look at this a little bit later if we don't find too much else around today. two of them are lying about 100 meters apart from one another, just less than 100 meters apart from one another, probably knowing full well that each other's there. The hyena would have absolutely heard Kunyuma jump down from the tree, and I have no doubt that with the elevated position Kunyuma was in, he would have been able to see the approach of that hyena and even possibly where he lay or she lay down. So they're fully aware of one another, and because they both live in the same area and have grown up in the same area, you probably find that they know one another as well. Much the same as what you'd know a neighbor in your street or in your block on site. These animals all know one another, especially the animals with territory. The wind has actually died down from this morning, funnily enough. Usually wind picks up as the day progresses, but today the wind has died down to almost non-existent. The breeze that was ruffling the treetops is now very still. It's actually a beautiful day. It's very, very quiet. Philly in Florida, welcome to the show. Good morning. We'd like to know if there's been any elephant seen on the reserve today. There's been no elephant seen on the reserve today, or yet I should say. It doesn't mean that they're not there. I'm hoping to actually go and see some elephant at the moment, so we're looking for some elephant sign ourselves. So I'm going to be starting at the thicker bush areas, and we're going to be working our way outwards from the dams in the area and seeing if we can find some elephant. I've been wanting to see a baby elephant for a few days now, so I'd also like to see some elephants. Much like our hyena, that hyena that we saw just now, you can wander up to 30 kilometers in an evening. Elephants are also great wanderers. It's not uncommon for them in the drier parts of the country to walk up to 50 kilometers in a day. And I've known elephants in the Kruger National Park to walk round trips of 160 kilometers or 100 miles in 2 days. Disappearing for 2 days and then coming back again. Who knows what they walk these distances for? The Kruger National Park has a lot of permanent rivers, and on top of that there are quite a few permanent watering holes as well. They do get smaller and taste a lot grimmer as the season dries up. And elephants are well known for enjoying fresh water whenever they can find it, going so far as to dig their own wells in riverbeds rather than drink from stagnating pools. as we're driving along, you're welcome to send me some questions. You can contact Nikki on Twitter at #SafariLive, or you can email questions at wildearth.tv, and I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. We're going to be crossing a small drainage line. This drainage line runs through the center of Kunyuma and is part of the lifeblood of this particular reserve. The reason for that is that even though there's no flowing water in it, there is definitely water underground in the river, and it supports quite a large diversity of trees, which obviously are good forage for animals, which in turn get preyed on by other animals. And in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve, these dry riverbeds are the focal point for a lot of animals through the dry season. Lucky enough to have this very productive drainage line going straight through the middle of June. Notice me swatting the flies as the day progresses and they start warming up. They get increasingly more active. Here we have a herd of kudu. That's a female. Her and her calf are sitting together. That's her calf. Quite difficult to sex from this angle. It's a female calf. And notice those pink ears with the reddish stripes in the middle, diagnostic, that white chevron, the stripes on the body and the crest. They belong to a group of antelope called the Tragelaphus antelope, or the spiral-horned antelope. Nyala, which are quite common on the reserve, you may have seen it in previous safaris. Bushbuck, kudu, bongo, sitatunga, mountain nyala, all part of this group of spiral-horned antelope. The males have these beautiful corkscrew horns of a variety of different shapes and sizes. Kudu have one of the most impressive. Females don't have horns. Look at that, beautiful. They're browsers, and she's busy browsing on the leaves of a particularly nutritious tree, a buffalo thorn from the genus Ziziphus. And being ruminants, she is needing to eat high protein leaves, very good quality leaves, kudu in fact eat about 150 different species of tree. The only animals in the bush that actually eat a more diverse diet than what she does are the elephant and the rhinoceros. So they're able to utilize a wide variety of trees. The attending red-billed oxpecker, sitting on her rump, preening himself or cleaning himself. The oxpecker and the kudu have a relationship with one another. It's a symbiosis. It's a symbiosis called mutualism, type of symbiosis called mutualism. The kudu benefits by having the very wide awake oxpecker on her rump that'll give her warning if she spots any predators. And the bird benefits from having a meal. The kudu is a large animal and attracts a lot of parasites in the forms of ticks, and the oxpecker will glean these ticks off of the kudu and in that way get itself some food. So a symbiosis called mutualism, where both animals benefit from the relationship. That was beautiful. So it was her and her calf, but kudu females hang around in herds together, and I have no doubt that there's some other members of the herd around. I'm just going to go around the bush and see what we can see. I do notice in the tree above my head we've got a vulture. You'll notice in the center, top center of the screen at the moment, the humped-backed form of a white-backed vulture. Quite a common vulture in this area. Not that vultures are common. Poisoning and of carcasses by farmers in an effort to control jackal numbers has seriously diminished vultures. They're on the threatened species list, so by no means a common bird, but this particular vulture species is seen quite often in the bush. It's not to say that there's a kill around here. A vulture this time of the day with the overcast cool weather we're having sitting in a tree is exactly where I'd expect to find vultures. They wait for the day to heat up for thermals to start being generated, and then they will, on their very wide wings, catch the thermals and soar across the reserves looking for any evidence of kills that they can go and scavenge. Vultures don't kill their own food. They scavenge off of other predators. And as soon as the day heats up, this vulture will get going. Probably today, around about 10, 11 o'clock, I'd expect them to start flying around. Unless the cloud cover breaks and the sun comes through. Now, if there were more vultures in the tree, or if we saw a diversity of scavengers, so more species of vultures, or a collection of white-backed vultures, or some eagles that typically like to scavenge, Batelea and tawny eagle like to scavenge, that would give us an indication that there was a kill in the area. But one white-backed vulture sitting in a tree this time of the day waiting for the sun to heat up a thermal, I very much doubt that there's a kill in the area. See if we can get this guy. And there we have a blue-eared starling. a blue-eared glossy starling, and we've got a big male kudu that's just come out of the bush. It's amazing how we can drive past and not see them at all, and next thing this 200 kilogram bulk of an animal comes ghosting through behind you. That's what a male kudu looks like. Very, very impressive. He's in attendance with his females. He's wanting to know if there's any chance that he can sire the next generation. Beautiful starling. So that glossiness comes from a transparent layer of keratin that's coating their feathers, which refract light. And the sunshine there. Viam, if you wouldn't mind going back to that guy, have a look at that. Wow. Beautiful example of a male kudu. Have a look at that impressive beard, a crest of hair along his back. They're able to erect that hair and make himself in profile look big. And with the markings on it, I'm just going to go around the bush quickly and see if we can get into a nice view to see him again.
Lion print.
Yes.
Older.
It's older. So this kudu at the moment is doing his disappearing trick again, hiding behind those bushes. There he comes. You'll be able to see him ghosting through the bush there. Just catch the movement. He's playing hard to get. You can just see his nose in the bottom right hand corner, and the glimpse of a horn. You'd never think that there was a 500-pound animal that's busy hiding in the bushes over there, 50 meters away from the car. Those stripes on his coat and that grey body giving him the camouflage that he needs to blend into the bush and hide away. See, very effective camouflage there. Because they're browsers, you can expect them to be in bushy areas like this, and that grey color that he has is to blend into background, and the stripes, the white stripes that you can just see through the underbrush there, are there to give that disruptive breakup, like shafts of sunlight coming through a canopy of trees, making him all but invisible. I mean, we drove right past him, we didn't even see him, and I was looking for a male kudu following these females, so very effective. Lovely morning over here. So let's keep on going. VM did point out some lion tracks on the floor next to us while I was busy looking at the kudu, and I'm going to see if we can see that. Let's see if VM can go up a little bit. VM, there we go. It's really tough to see, but that's a lion track. Let's see if we can find another one. They're old lion tracks, I would say, from yesterday. They're not fresh enough to follow at the moment. I'd gather it was from the male lion that we saw yesterday morning in attendance with that male and female. One of them are Timber brothers. Go right ahead. Hello Jeffrey in the UK. Thanks for sending your question through to me about oxpeckers and their preference for animals and preference for tick species. Oxpeckers definitely do have a preference for the animals that they like to sit on. For instance, you don't see oxpeckers sitting on elephants, but you do see oxpeckers sitting on buffalo and rhinoceros. And that's because the animals that carry the higher tick loads are the ones preferred by the oxpeckers, or animals that like to live in dense herds, for instance like impala. So absolutely, giraffe, rhino, buffalo, kudu, impala, zebra, wildebeest are probably the most common of the animals, as far as I can think at the moment, are probably the most common animals that oxpeckers like to sit on. You get two different types of oxpeckers in this area. You get the red-billed oxpecker. By far the most common of the oxpeckers was the one that we just watched on the kudu. And then you get a yellow-billed oxpecker as well. They were exterminated from this area about 60 years ago, unfortunately, with the use of insecticide in cattle farms neighboring these reserves. And very quickly they were exterminated because the birds ate the ticks that were poisoned by the insecticide and were exterminated before we really even realized what we were doing 60 years ago. As you can imagine, ecology and the study of the environment wasn't a natural science as common as what it is today. People did things in those days ignorantly that we're even feeling their repercussions today from. They were reintroduced into this area about, correct me if I'm wrong please, there's lots of reference material available on the web, I can't think of it right now, but about 20 years ago, a couple of pairs were reintroduced into the Sabi Sands, and they are doing incredibly well, the yellow-billed oxpecker. The reason why the red-billed oxpecker wasn't as affected as the yellow-billed oxpecker, and it is the reason why the red-billed oxpecker is more common, is because the red-billed oxpecker substitutes the ticks that it eats with blood and with keeping wounds open on animals. Both species do eat blood, but the red-billed oxpecker definitely eats more blood than what the yellow-billed oxpecker does, and so it wasn't as badly affected by the use of this particular pesticide. Red-billed oxpecker are our friends out here, as much as what they give our presence away when we're walking around in the bush. They also help us to find animals. They've got a very distinctive call, and very often we like we enjoy sightings because of oxpeckers that have helped us to relocate animals. The message. So Deanne from Washington, welcome to the show, asked if there was a difference between ticks and fleas. Absolutely, there's a very big difference between ticks and fleas. They're both parasites that live on animals. Ticks are flattened dorso-ventrally, so they flattened pancakes. Fleas are flattened laterally is the correct word to use. They flatten sideways and they jump. Ticks crawl around, fleas jump around. The animals out here have both, but by far the more numerous, at least visually, are ticks. They are big and small, whereas fleas are tiny little things. We don't really see them. They're tough to see even with binoculars. So thank you for your question. Out of the clouds at the moment. It's going to be time for me to get a hat out soon, not only to protect myself from getting sunburned, but also to protect your eyes from the reflection off of my head. So while I'm scanning the bush, and for the benefit of those viewers who have just joined us or have joined us through the course of the morning, we woke up quite early this morning to the sound of some hyena around the camp, and in the dark, myself and VM on camera left the lodge. We leave the lodge quite early, 6 o'clock, and were updated from our final control that some viewers had found or had seen leopard at the dam and hyena at the dam. We then decided, with a team effort, a couple of rangers working together, that we'd work to try and find this animal. We were working up and down a drainage line leading into the dam, and our colleagues found Kunyuma, a young male leopard, in the tree, or in a tree, with a steenbok killed just around the dam that he had killed last night. We then joined Kunyuma for a bit. He was lying in the tree initially, and then he got down for a rest. There was a hyena lying quite close to him, and now we are quartering through the reserve. I'm looking for some elephant. I'm woke up with a need this morning to see some elephant, and we'll see potentially in a bit. If we don't find too much, we'll go back and see if Kunyuma is back into the tree and finishing off his breakfast. While we're driving around, you're welcome to send us questions. Questions get radioed through to me, and they can either be done through Twitter with hashtag @SafariLive, or emailed through to questions@wildearth.tv. Been a relatively quiet day on the reserve so far, due to the overcast weather and the cooler temperatures. And that's what's so nice about coming on safari is that you don't actually know what you're going to see. You have an idea of what you'd like to see. You'd like to, for instance, follow up on a lead, like there was a leopard seen at a dam a couple of hours ago, or you found some fresh tracks, or you heard something in the bush, lions roaring for instance, or trees crashing down, but you don't actually know what you're going to find. The bush talks to you. Rangers out here call it the bush newspaper, and it takes a little bit of practice to understand what the bush is trying to tell you, but animals move. They move from area to area. We're part of a collection of reserves with no boundaries between us except for man's boundaries, roads and fire breaks and power lines, etc. There's no fences. So why I've stopped is that there's an alarm call, quite a sharp alarm call coming from our left hand side. Sounds like the alarm call from a mongoose. Just so happens to be a prime example of one of these newspaper articles that we're reading. This mongoose is busy alarm calling at something, and I'd like to know what. It could be anything. It could be a raptor, it could also be a leopard, or a lion in actual fact. Just a little bit behind us. So what I'm going to do now is scan, coming from behind it. I'm scanning the bush at the moment to see if I can see anything. I can't see anything immediately apparent, which is a good sign. So exactly where you're looking at the moment, behind that tree, that's where the alarm calls are coming from. I can't actually see the mongoose. They would have dived for cover at the first sign of whatever alerted them. They live in social groups, and while the family is foraging, one of the social groups will always be on the lookout for predators. Now, they're quite small, these little guys, and they get preyed upon by a whole variety of different predators, from snakes through to large predators like leopard, and then also birds. So these guys giving us a warning call over here. I'm busy looking not only for snakes, I'm also looking for raptors and birds of prey. I can't see anything. Doesn't mean that something's not here though. As I said, the bush is telling me that there's a predator here. And until I know what predator that is, or have an idea of what predator that is, we can't be too sure that it's not a leopard hiding in the grass right here. So they're still giving the alarm call. More than one in actual fact is giving the alarm call. If it was a snake, only one would be giving an alarm call. But a large predator or a bird is what I'm thinking at the moment. So the alarm calls are coming from just further off to our left. So I'm going to reverse a little bit and have a look. There's a large torchwood tree behind us, and perhaps a goshawk is sitting inside. Here's the torchwood, Balanites species. Quite often thick trees like this would harbor a raptor like a goshawk who do hunt from cover. I don't see any goshawk in this tree at the moment, so that discounts a goshawk. I don't see any eagles flying over me, so that discounts an eagle. So the only thing that I can think of is a ground-based predator that's run into these guys. So we've got snake, we've got any number of cat species from African wildcat, serval, caracal and leopard, and then we've got snakes. So now the only other option left to me is actually to take a quick walk in here. Now, for those of you worried about my safety, don't worry too much. I'm going to be relatively close to the vehicle. I'm not going to walk very far away. You'll be able to see me. And I'm just going to go and have a look. The reason being is out here, you've got a couple curiosity with a bit of caution. But what we do is we take calculated risks. I'm calculating the odds of there being a leopard right here or a lion being right here as fairly low. But what I am inquisitive about, I want to know what these mongoose are frightened of. And what it could result in is us having a nice sighting of a python or some other big snake or a rare cat species like an African wildcat or a caracal, which we don't often see. So I'm going to take a risk by jumping off the car. It's something that I've done many hundreds of times, and it piques my interest to understand what makes these little guys so jumpy. So they're still giving the alarm call. It's not too far away from the car, 20 or 30 meters. I'm going to ask VM to stay on wide angle because quite often you spook a bird of prey out of a tree close by, and I'm going to see if perhaps we can get something out of the bush here. Give me 5 minutes. So I'm not too sure at all what was giving them an alarm call. So if I were to take a guess, it's probably a bird of prey that flew quite low down over them and gave them all a big fright, and has got them all jumpy and giving their alarm calls. But there's absolutely nothing where they were standing. I found them as I walked in there. They gave me a little bit of space. They're all in the grass over there watching me and moving about. It's a little social group of dwarf mongoose. Nothing that is immediately apparent to me. There is something here. Something spooked them, but I couldn't find out what it is. So it's either a bird or it's a snake that was hunting them, but nothing immediately apparent. let's carry on with our safari. I'm still busy scanning the tall trees out here. My gut feel tells me that it was a bird of prey that's come over here. Goshawk or sparrowhawk, or even one of the smaller eagles like a African harrier hawk. But nothing immediately apparent. So we're going to be carrying on. We're going to move out of that particular area. So notice in front of us, the road is actually quite wide. This is one of our fire breaks. Our fire breaks in an area like this is vitally important. They are used in preventing fire from being able to damage too much property. Fire has to happen in the bush. It's a way for Mother Nature to clean up a build-up at least of dead wood and detritus, which otherwise might produce such an enormous fuel load that eventually when it does burn will even set living trees alight. So you get fires coming through here periodically. We don't try and stop them too much. We will try and stop them from burning down property, lodges for instance, which pose a significant safety risk. And here on the road beneath me I have female leopard tracks. So we've got relatively fresh female leopard tracks on the road in front of us. What I'm going to try and do now is, following the sequence of tracks, I'm going to try and determine an approximate age of this track. So was it laid down this morning? Was it laid down yesterday? In other words, is it fresh enough to invest time and effort in following? By fresh enough, because it takes quite a while to track or trail these animals, you want a set of tracks that was laid down within a couple of minutes to a couple of hours of where you are, where you find those tracks. So the one track that I did see back there was done in some soft sand. Soft sand can hold a track shape for a while. And now I see that the leopard track has got a millipede. I'm going to see if I can actually show this to you. So that you can get an idea of what I'm talking about in terms of what the newspaper has just told us about this track. Now, let me see which is going to be the easiest track for you to see, but believe it or not, that set of indentations in the sand is the track of a female leopard. Now with a grass blade I'm going to try and show you exactly what I mean, or what I'm talking about. I think a stick's going to work better, but we have the back of the pad there and the toes, 1, 2, 3, 4 toes that have registered. Now the leopard is walking in this direction, so this is the direction of travel, and you will notice that this funny line here, this light line, that is a millipede. Now millipedes only walk around at night time, so the track was laid down, then the millipede came over it, which tells me that this track was made early evening before the millipedes got active. So early evening, which was yesterday afternoon or yesterday night. So at the moment these tracks are not fresh enough to follow, although we're going to be moving in the direction she's traveling down the road and see if we can pick up fresher tracks. Now what's quite interesting is I can actually tell you that this track is the back foot of a female leopard, and it's the back right foot of a female leopard. And the easy way of doing that is you take your fingers and you put them in the toes and you see which ones match up, and you'll notice that this outside toe is slightly lower than that toe. If I had to put a piece of grass there, you'd see what I was meaning, and it matches my fingers. So this is the back foot, the back right foot of a female leopard with a millipede track over it. So let's carry on going down the road. So anywhere in the night, in an evening, so leopard walk around at night. They walk around a couple of kilometers a night. We've got a drainage line in front of us. She may or may not have made a kill. She may have been marking some territory. Only by following these tracks will we actually find out exactly what she was doing. So William has just asked me what my full name and surname is, and please excuse me if I'm not doing it enough, folks. I know it's my second drive out here, and for those of you who've been watching the show for a long time, you may not recognize me as, or you may recognize me as a new face, I should say. So my name is Stefan Winterboer, and I'm a South African by birth, and I was born in Pretoria, which is the nation's capital. I'm going to be turning around over here. Her tracks don't come out onto this particular road. So my gut feel tells me that this animal crossed over the road, directly over the road. It's not uncommon. Leopard tend to walk in trajectories, in linear trajectories. So they don't like to jink around. They may do to visit a tree or hunt something, but in general what they do is they walk in one particular direction for a bit, and then something happens and they change that direction. So because we haven't got any tracks coming out on this road, I've got a feeling that she's in the bushes on the left hand side of us, or we've moved through this block. The tracks are not that fresh. We're going to go around to the other side of this block and see if she comes out. Obviously keeping our eyes and ears open for any telltale signs that she might still be in the block. These would be animals giving their alarm calls predominantly as a way that we find that information. Failing that and given enough time, we may actually track her footprints into the block with the hope of putting ourselves into the mindset of the animal. You get that information from the tracks. Is she walking fast or slow? You get it from studying the behavior of these animals over long periods of time. When was the last time she ate? Has she got cubs? Is she being... Liam's just spotted a steenbok. Ah, there we go. Now that is a very good spot there, Liam. Well done. That is what Kunyuma was eating. So what was left of Kunyuma's kill was just the hindquarters. This is what it looked like before he decided to make a meal of it. A dwarf antelope, one of the 4 dwarf antelope that we find in this particular area. Those being duiker, steenbok, klipspringer, only 3 dwarf antelope actually. Duiker, steenbok and klipspringer. You don't find sharp-scraced buck on this side of the reserve. So steenbok, good spot there, Wiem. They hardly ever stand out in the open. They don't enjoy thick bush. That duiker enjoy thick bush. These guys enjoy their open patches of grass, but they're very quick to move, usually sprinting away as soon as they see that you've seen them. Maybe it stands through there. They're also browsers. And steenbok have some quite interesting behavioral characteristics because they're obviously small and don't possess a massive set of horns or anything else that they can really attack a predator with. Their best form of defense is to be unnoticed. And what they do is they freeze. So if they had to see a leopard or a cheetah, they freeze and they sink down onto their haunches and they lie absolutely dead still, not even the flicker of an ear. But it goes one step further. They're also well known to bury their dung. So very similar to a house cat who will dig a scrape in their litter box, defecate, and then scrape it up again. Steenbok exhibit exactly the same behavior. They dig a scrape, they defecate in the scrape, and then they cover it again. All in an effort to minimize their presence in a particular area. I don't know of a single other antelope species that deposits its dung in such a fashion. Unique, as far as I understand it, to be in the animal world. I have to say thank you for everyone's concerns over me getting some sunburn on my, on my head. Thank you very much. I appreciate your concern. I do wear a very thick layer of sun cream and sunblock. It's partly why I worry so much that my reflection is blinding you on your screens at home. And I do have a hat in my guiding bag, which as soon as I start feeling the temperature heat up too much, I promise you I'll put on. But thank you very, very much. And honey badger, I really enjoy hyena and honey badger. Those are my two favorites. I do enjoy watching leopard and lion. They obviously, their presence is just phenomenal. They definitely have a special place in my heart. But in different aspects and different types of the bush, I like different things. I've guided and toured across most of southern and east Africa, and in different areas, different things hold my attention. Definitely a common denominator is spotted hyena and honey badger. Do I have a bucket list of animals that I'd like to see? Absolutely. I would still like to spend some more time with pangolin and aardvark. Excuse me, waving like this is just you drive through these bands of flies out here that absolutely irritate me, so I enjoy swatting them around. So it's not me doing some funky dance. I'd definitely like to see some of the rarer antelope species, Liechtenstein's hartebeest and Defassa waterbuck. I enjoy touring through areas as well. Seeing new sites, visiting new national parks, camping out in the wild. Right here. So Wiley on Twitter just asked me if you find any of the other dwarf antelope species like Sunni out here. There are no Sunni in the Sabi Sands. You do find Sharp's Gracebuck, Klipspringer, Duiker and Steenbuck are the 4 dwarf antelope species that we find here. Common duiker, many different types of duiker in Africa. The further you get toward the tropics, the duiker species actually increase in number, and in places like the Congo and in the very thick tropical rainforests around the equator, duiker species are the most common of the forest species that you find. Quite a big diverse mix of them. Like here you only find the common or the grey duiker, the Steenbuck, Klipspringer and Sharp's Gracebuck. I'm sorry if I created some confusion there with my bucket list of animals. Simon on Twitter has just asked me what is a pangolin. And that's a good question. Another word for a pangolin is a scaly anteater. The closest thing that I can find in my brain at the moment as a comparison would be a armadillo, but with plates, round plates on them. It's a tiny little animal, probably about this big, and has these discs on it. They're scales, but they're quite big scales, and they eat termites and ants. Now, the reason why I stopped there was because we've got some fresh elephant tracks on the floor. They are going away from us, but they're also not that fresh. They were made probably early this morning, so I'm going to circle this block and see if we can find this elephant as well. It's nice. The elephant tracks and the hyena and the leopard tracks are all going in a similar direction, so it works in our favor in that we seem to have a convergence of the two animals that I'm wanting to find this morning. Let's have a quick look while we're here. It's what's happening at the dam. It's still a little bit cool this morning, so I doubt too much will be happening here. With that changing as the day heats up. As the day heats up, these dams become the focal point of a lot of interaction with animals, or a procession of animals that come in and go out. At the moment, nothing much except for grey heron fishing on the far bank. Not even the crocodile that is here can be seen. There's the grey heron changing fishing spots. Beautiful bird. It's always a good idea when you are at a dam like this, just to take 1 or 2 minutes just to scan the fringes of the dam. You'd be surprised at what can hide away at the fringes of the dam. We are in a drier time of the year. We haven't had as much rain as what we've expected to have this year. Looks like we're going into everyone's predicting that we're going into a drought, and it certainly looks that way. And quite often predators, as it starts getting drier, would start to concentrate their hunting efforts around dams and pans. They know that the animals must come to them. Unlike when it's wet, they have to go and find animals who are spread thinly through the bush. So it's always a good idea. We have come here, take some time, scan around. It's called glassing, when I take my binoculars and I glass the fringes and in the shadows and likely hiding places and ambush spots. This is Buffelshoek Dam. For those of you who are familiar with the property, and definitely a focal point for a lot of action, cat action, over the last couple of weeks. Go right ahead. Excuse me, just repeat a bit slower. So Brenda in Pennsylvania has just asked if there's any safe areas to fish in the Kruger National Park or in its surrounding areas. Hello Brenda, thank you for your question. The Kruger National Park is a national park, and therefore fishing is illegal. The mandate of the Kruger National Park is to protect biodiversity in all its forms, and so fishing unfortunately is not allowed in the Kruger National Park. However, there's very good fishing just on the edges of the Kruger National Park. Probably the best examples of which would be in a little town called Dullstroom that has a long history of trout fishing. Trout were introduced there about 60 years ago, and there's some very good trout fishing in that part of the world. There's also very good yellowfish fishing and even some tigerfish that you can find in the Sabi River. And I do have friends that fish quite often for the yellowfish and for tigerfish in these areas. However, I'm not too sure if there's any places specifically designated for fishing. Only designated fishing places I know of are in Dilstrom for the trout. Right, so I can't see anything around the dam, so I think let's carry on quartering the block where we found the elephant tracks going in and the leopard tracks going in, and seeing if we can't get either in front of those tracks or onto some fresher tracks along the same sequence. This time of the year, the bush has this lovely warm smell emanating from it. As autumn's approaching and the trees are starting to drop their leaves, you'll notice on some of the trees the yellow and gold colors of the dropping leaves in the grass forms a mat on the floor, and the action of decomposition and breaking down gives the air on still mornings like this the most wonderful, warm, toasty, musty smell, which is indicative of this time of the year. May is one of my favorite months. The grass is starting to lie flat and the trees are starting to lose their leaves, which makes looking into the bush a lot easier. And the animals are very well fed after a good summer, so they're not looking gaunt like they are at the end of the dry season, which we're going into at the moment. And the blessing of cooler evenings and cooler days also make it a lot easier to live out here in the bush. Yeah, definitely started getting everywhere. That, just let me know when it gets back to normal. Sorry about that jumpy signal, folks. In some places of the reserve, we go through these dips of low altitude and bush. Sometimes it's difficult for our antennae to talk back to find control, but it's only, thankfully, it's only in a few small areas in the reserve. And we are back online. We had a question come through from Jeffrey on grey herons, whether they nest or where they nest. And Jeffrey, grey herons are one of those birds that are monogamous, so they are male and female, stay together for life, and they nest either in reed beds or in trees. They can be either or, either reed beds or in trees, and not necessarily just in their pair. They have been known to nest in communities as well. So you would have noticed another game drive vehicle just come past us. That was Aubrey. We can say thank you to him for finding Kunyuma this morning on that Steenbok hill. He was the one that was helping me in the area. I'm hearing a Franklin alarm calling in the drainage line just next to us. Now it's very thick inside there, but it is in exactly the vector that we are expecting that leopard track to come out somewhere in. So the Franklin doesn't sound, it's not giving an alarm call, it's just making a noise like it was disturbed. Aubrey has just driven through there, so it's not to say that the Franklin is not giving an alarm call to Aubrey, but it definitely is worth a closer inspection. Now all these little tidbits of information, track from last night and Franklin giving a call and the thick bush and just my general gut feel after all these years of doing this just builds this excitement in you. It builds this expectation of seeing something pop out of the bush, either on the road or somewhere close to where I am. I'm going to switch my car off for a bit and just listen a bit closer. In the screen, it might be difficult for us to get. If you zoom in, if you can, there's a green pigeon in the Jackalberry where the Marula branch ends and the Jackalberry starts, on that transition, on that break. If you go up a little bit, up, to the left a bit, stop there. Okay, in the center, the direct center of the screen is a green pigeon. There we go. Yellow socks and all. Very difficult bird to see in the foliage of a tree. Have a look at that. Not an easy bird to get on film whatsoever. I must say congratulations to VM for that. Camouflage pigeon. It's the largest pigeon that we find in this particular area. And it's a frugivore, which means that it eats fruit, and it's in a jackalberry at the moment. You can see its beak actually had some jackalberry fruit all over it. Beautiful coloring, it's green just like the foliage. Yellow socks. And while I'm listening for more telltale signs here in the bush, it's going to be a nice thing to see. Some more Franklin calling in the background. There he goes. high up in the branches of a jackalberry tree, a green pigeon. Something nice to check off your list of birds this morning for those of you who are interested or in the birds of the area. So you'll notice I'm driving quite slowly, and that's just to give me enough chance to quarter both sides of the road and scan, and to listen without wind noise in my ear, and to give me a chance to make use of any sandy patches on the road to see for tracks. Using my ears. Thankfully I have big ears, helps me listen to everything in the bush. Franklin has calmed down completely, so he was just having a moment, so not giving any alarm calls. Sorry, Aubrey, could you repeat that? Or last station, just repeat that message. Copy that, thanks. So we're following this drainage line. We're quartering our way through the bush where where a little bit earlier we've picked up some leopard tracks moving into this area. It's a female leopard. The tracks were from early last night or yesterday afternoon, and now what we're trying to do is pick up where she left the block and see if we can see her, or see if we can get any or onto any fresher tracks. There was also some tracks of an elephant moving into this area, an elephant bull. Big. Now with them diet changing from grass to more woody species of tree, where we are now is a good place to look for them. Don't forget, you're welcome to send your questions through on Twitter at #SafariLive, or email them through to questions@wildearth.tv. So William on Twitter has just asked me if I've heard of any talk or any developments around bringing back carrier pigeons. William, I haven't. I must be honest that I thought that carrier pigeons were extinct. Although you may have found that they found some genetic material from somewhere, and with the advances in science that they've got today, I wouldn't put it past them to find a way to bring back carrier pigeons if they found some genetic material. I thought, as far as I know, at least anyway, that carrier pigeons have been extinct for a while. However, the beauty of what we have at the moment is we can put that question out there to the world. So if any of you have any information or can find any information on carrier pigeons and their potential of being brought back from either the fossil record, or if there was some or other type of carrier pigeon that I didn't know about that was in captivity somewhere, please, you're welcome to share it with us either on Twitter or email it through to Final Control, and I'll share it to the rest of the viewers. What I did want to show you over here is a sign on this branch. You'll notice that there are some scratch marks on this tree. That is typical of lion. That's a lion who has walked down this road, and there you can see 3 of its claw marks, sharpening his claws. And the stop that this has given us, or the chance to stop that this has given us, is let me hear squirrels that are giving a big alarm call in front of us. So I'm quickly going to rush off and see what is giving this squirrel a hard time. I'm quickly going to move into this area. Squirrels don't often call for long. I actually think that I want to get into the drainage line. Let's quickly just check on this road, and then I think I'm going to go into the drainage line. You see, folks, I'm going to pick up the speed a little bit, and the reason for that is that if it is a leopard, which I'm expecting it to be, this female that we've been tracking, if she gets seen, quite often they move out of an area when they get seen by a squirrel quite quickly, and all you're left with is a shouting squirrel and some tracks in the sand, and it takes you forever to try and find this animal again. So we're quickly just going to jump into the riverbed. That squirrel sounds like he's shouting into the riverbed. I'm going to see if we've managed to read this sign good enough, well enough I should say. I'm going to jump into the riverbed here. Let's have a look. Tracks of that female leopard were heading right to this area. As I've mentioned, leopard enjoy walking in straight lines. That squirrel is still shouting his head off, which is good. So let's slow everything down again. Keep our eyes peeled. Let's first find the squirrel. See where he's busy shouting. As so often happens, as you get here, the squirrel stops calling.
The mongoose are ahead of us.
Liam's just spotted a mongoose, which might be the reason why the squirrel is giving a call. And carry on and have a look. Squirrels do get preyed upon by mongoose, and so they will react to mongoose. And even if we don't find anything, it's lovely to drive in a riverbed. Big kudu in front of us. He's very relaxed. So nothing that came this way. Kudu will also react to the presence of a predator. Two male kudu. Hello, boy. You'll notice that kudu behind this one has just turned broadside to this young male. And he's erected that crest of hair on his fringe. It's called a piloerection. It's when they erect that crest of hair, and it is a way that kudu fight. That's how they fight. It's not all teeth and claws. The way that he fought was he presented himself broadside and he erected that fringe of hair, or that crest of hair, making himself look impressive. It's a way that they show one another who's the boss. I want to get forward a little bit. He's still in full display at the moment, and it is an impressive sight, a male kudu in full display like that. Have a look at that massive neck and those corkscrew horns. We're going to get onto him in a second. Those corkscrew horns, have a look right there. You can almost see straight down the middle of them, and that really thick neck for carrying around that rack of horns. Full-grown male kudu, he won't get any more turns in his horns. That's the maximum amount of turns that they get. And you get kudu with widely splayed horns and kudu with closely growing horns. He seems to be somewhere in the middle. Right here. Bloy on Twitter has just asked if the number of turns is an indication of age, and absolutely. They will reach a maximum amount of turns in about 2 full turns with the start of the 3rd turn. And I'm actually just going to see if in one of my books in my car I have a picture of the different horn twists, because it'll give you a nice indication of what I'm talking about here. I have it in one of my books. Just busy seeing. If you give me 1 second and I'll try and find a demonstration where they've got a graph of the different ones. But basically, that was a full-grown kudu. He won't get any more turns in his horns. Now, I'm sorry, but in this massive box of books that I have with me here, I don't have anything that will show you. Let me see, one more reference book that I have here on mammals. Give 1 second, everybody. No, unfortunately, in all my books, I don't have one single picture of the different horn lengths of the different ages. Please excuse me on that one. I'd actually need a bigger car if I brought more books, and it doesn't have the answer to that question. But basically, in their first year, they won't have any twists in their horns. In their first year, they will only get a half a twist. In 2 to 5 years, they will develop the other twist and a half. And from 7 years onwards to 12 years, they will be the full-grown kudu with the 2.5 twists. I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry I can't show you a picture. Got the kudu on my right-hand side. And he is with a bunch of females at the moment and another big male kudu. So there are 3 big kudu, and this kudu is actually half a twist on the kudu we just saw before. I'm going to see if we can get to see him. There's a youngster. They are some of the most beautiful. Have a look at that. Ears almost as big as mine. Bit more hair on their head than I've got. This is a youngster. It was born last summer. They're born mostly in February. She looks like she's just had a milkshake for breakfast. Can I have a look at this big male here on the left hand side? This time of year the male kudu are in attendance with the females because they're wanting to mate with them. Male kudu are very hard to find, generally speaking, because they are solitary. There we have, and you can see he's moving off. He's quite shy. We're going to try and see if we can get it as we pass. Have a look at that. Oh, and there he runs away. That was an impressive kudu. Here's a female. That's who he was hoping to impress. She's a full-grown female. Further indication of what to make squirrels upset. It's not to say that there isn't anything in there, but squirrels stopped calling. The kudu were quite relaxed. The bush wasn't giving us any more indication that there was anything there. So what we're going to do is we're going to carry on quartering through the area and see if we can't pick up some sign, further sign. Dora in Ohio, hello Dora, has just asked me if I have done any guiding in the US or if I have any favorite animals in the US. I haven't done any guiding in the US, Dora, although I have visited the United States. I found it spectacularly beautiful in some areas. And my favorite animal there probably has to be your mountain lion and the moose. Although I'm not too sure if you have moose in the US, but definitely I quite enjoy them. They're comical looking animals. And mountain lions quite closely resemble our leopard here, and I must say I feel a certain kinship there. Offshore in the US, you've also got the one of the world's best blue whale viewing posts, just south of San Diego, and it is a place that I'd like to go back and visit some more. Is your blue whale viewing off of San Diego, and I'd really like to go and see General Sherman, your massive sequoia redwood that you've got further north. As far as we all know, it's the largest living being in the universe, and it lives in the time that we're alive on this planet, and something that I definitely want to have a look at before I move on. Joined us just recently and are wondering why I'm driving so slow and keeping it on a pivot, is that we found some relatively fresh female leopard tracks and tracks of a big bull elephant moving into the area where we are now. I'm just taking my time to make sure that I don't miss any of this or signs that we could miss, and not driving fast in the wind in my ears, block out the sound of alarm calls or branches breaking. It's also the area where yesterday, for those of you who were watching yesterday, would have seen the lion, the two male lion with the female. We're very close to where they were yesterday, and it might account for the fact that this leopard that we're following doesn't seem to have come out in this particular area. They would have left a considerable amount of scent marking around. They were there for most of the day yesterday, and from what you saw, they were busy roaring their heads off. So any other predator coming into this area would be aware of that and would be more wary of just walking nonchalantly down the road. These animals do have a sense of where each other is. They won't be able to pinpoint exactly, but lion roar all the time. Their kills are quite noisy. Other members of the pride in other areas will be able to hear that, and similar goes for leopard. Leopard also mark and make noise and disrupt the bush as they go through it, and other leopard in the area will also be able to pick up on that. And without really pinpointing where they are, they definitely will be able to know what area they're in. If only we could plug into that somehow, eh? no sign of those cats coming out here, or that, not of the lion or of the leopard from yesterday. So not to worry, things could change in a blink of an eye, as you've so often seen. I thought we'd do, as we're reaching the end of our broadcast, is let's pop our head back into Kunyuma on his steenbok kill and see what he's gotten up to. I have no doubt that he's probably still stretched out under the tree, busy enjoying a belly full of tasty steenbok. Go and see what he's been up to for the morning while we've been searching. So it's been a relatively quiet morning across the reserve today here at Juma and at Arathusa, our partners, and where we get to enjoy driving around in the bush. Not much has been fun. I think the highlight of the morning has been Kunyuma on his steenbok kill, and that in a way is quite exciting. You know, as we go off into the afternoon, it's almost like a fresh slate. You've got to apply your mind to thinking, where was the freshest tracks that you found? Or what did you hear? You're picking up bits and pieces from rangers who have made some notes during the day. And while we all have breakfast together and strategize about what we're going to do in the afternoon, it gets the creative juices flowing, for lack of a better word, and sets a challenge. You know, it's you basically pitting yourself against animals here, finding out where they're doing what and where's the most likely place that they're going to be. And I must say it makes for enlivening breakfast table conversations between game drives. The, so to say, behind the scenes action. I must say thank you to my extended team, and that's yourselves, of course. For instance, there's a lot of Twitter chat that on the Juma cam that there's just been a giraffe down to drink at the water. So for those of you who are new to this product, you're welcome to go and have a look at the static cameras that we've got around. They are often a great source of wildlife viewing. And it might fill the gap between from now to when we see you again. And thank you very, very much for all your feedback on Twitter and across the emails. definitely so nice to be able to talk to you and be able to answer your questions, and you're welcome to send more. So we're right back in the area here with Kunyuma and his kill, his steenbok kill in the tree. Sun has come out, starting to heat up quite nicely. So he's not in the tree at the moment. He's still probably lying exactly where we left him. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. Well, not quite exactly where we left him. I can just see the flick of his tail. Can you see him over my shoulder there?
Listen away.
Sorry. So that flicking of his tail was what gave him away. I didn't actually see him in that grass. It shows you how camouflaged he is. I mean, he's lying literally 1 or 2 meters away from where he was. Could hardly see him. Just that telltale flick of his tail that lets me know that he wasn't too happy with me coming that close to him. But I'm sorry, I couldn't see you, big guy. Your camouflage works too well. This is another really good example of how that disruptive camouflage of his breaks up his profile. You can hardly tell that there's a leopard there, except for when he picked up his head. Green eyes staring at us through the undergrowth. Let's see if in the last couple of minutes we can get a little bit closer to him without facing him direct on. He hasn't eaten anything more from this morning. I'm just going to reposition here slightly. So folks, we're ending off today with a beautiful view of Kunyuma. We found him with a group effort this morning with a steenbok kill in the tree. He's now lying up with a full belly just next to us. We then tracked a female leopard's tracks or some elephant tracks, hoping that we'd be able to pick them up, but without any luck. We also then saw some kudu, some beautiful kudu. With male kudu, full-grown male kudu in attendance. We had a nice view of some birds and a starling, some scratch marks in a tree which were uncommon to see. We've answered some nice questions on carrier pigeons. I'm not too sure we've got a conclusive answer from that yet, but it's definitely something that I'll be following up on when I get back to camp. From myself, Stefan Winterboer, at the end of my second drive here at Djuma. VM on camera, who's been a great set of eyes. and Nikki in Final Control. We thank you very, very much for joining us. We look forward to this afternoon safari.